question before we segue to the book signing. I'm going to put Stockton on the spot a little bit, or give him the opportunity, if he wants, just to share any insights he had about immersing himself in De Maria's art and performing it. Just anything you might want to say, Stockton.
Well, I really don't want to have to speak after these gentlemen. They're so eloquent, so I'll try to be brief. But my perspective on preparation for these performances was very technical, in that I was just trying to do the closest replication of the originals as possible. And whenever I'm in a situation where I'm replicating someone else's compositions, I focus on the various technical aspects that will hopefully do justice to the composer's original intent. So it's been a lot of fun for me to hear everyone's perspective on it. My technical perspective on it would be, having done some research and reading about De Maria's comments about the pieces and what influenced him, he stated in a couple different interviews that he was listening to a lot of John Coltrane's music in the early 60s, and John Coltrane was experimenting with long swaths of time, and the common phrase is sheets of sound is what John Coltrane was experimenting with on his tenor saxophone, which was being only able to sustain one note at a time. His idea was to play scales so quickly that it gave you the aural illusion of hearing a chord. And one of the quotes, and I'm not quoting it verbatim, that De Maria said was that he had to come to terms with Coltrane's music. And some of his friends who he was in the rock band with at the time were listening to a lot of John Coltrane's music. And as a huge jazz music fan, I definitely was able, I think, to approach connecting with these performance pieces in the way that I connected a lot to the great drummer Elvin Jones, who was John Coltrane's drummer. And even, it was really fascinating to see some of those pictures. I had not seen them. You could see that the type of cymbals that were being used there were the identical Zildjian cymbals that were hand-hammered and played by all the drummers in the New York City area. So those were some of the things that struck me. And I thought one of the other interesting things about it was that from the time he recorded cricket music in 1964, he really seemingly didn't play drums hardly at all for the next couple years until he did Ocean's music. And I think that most definitely the endurance involved with playing cricket's music was the endurance that a drummer who was playing 6 or 7 nights a week would have. And it's not near as challenging endurance-wise to do Ocean's music, because from a performance standpoint, he switches the responsibility between the two pieces. In cricket music, the drums are the primary voice that eventually, after a long period of time, give way to the field recording becoming louder in the mix. Ocean's music is really a photo negative of that, where it starts with the track and then the drums sneak in. So that was one of the interesting things for me. And the other fun and challenging thing about both of these items was that the original field recordings, which would be the crickets or the Ocean by themselves, so we would call that unaltered without the drums on it, don't exist to my knowledge in the research I did. And so for the cricket music piece, I created the cricket ambient track by downloading a whole bunch of free ambient cricket sounds that apparently people listen to sleep. Yeah. And so I downloaded 5 or 6 of them, and I mixed them all together, and then I tried to pitch correct them so that they would sound like the crickets on De Maria's original. But then on Oceans, that is actually the field recording. I was able to find to sample a portion of that from De Maria's original recording where there were no drums yet, and I looped it for my performance so that his original drums weren't in there. So just kind of some nerdy technical drum stuff for you. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much.